Welcome in once again to the night shift. We are a few weeks into the regular season. Always exciting. I feel like now we have more of a sample size to kind of dictate what the team is going to be like, how they're going to play moving forward. But also, Mike, we get to talk about a couple of wins for the London Knights. We welcome in you to the podcast here. My name is Kyle Grimard, Mike Stubbs, your host as always. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Also stream the entire episode up on YouTube. We'll share those to our socials and platforms. The Knights do a fantastic job at promoting that, and you can see it on their webpage as well, which is really cool. But Mike, back-to-back wins. Knights in the win column for the first time of the 2025-26 season. Let's talk about how they got there and everything else in between.
You bet. I mean, we're going to look at those two victories, both in overtime. We've got the NHL season starting, and the numbers are out. And I always love to look at how many players are produced by Canadian Hockey League teams, because this league, major junior hockey as a whole, lives up to its description of being the best developmental league in the world year after year after year. There are 736 players on NHL rosters total. So that's 23 for every roster. How many spent a little bit of time in the Canadian Hockey League and one of the three major junior leagues? 402. That's a lot. And then when you break it down for the London Knights, the Knights have been on an island in this category for a long time. And so we can get to it in depth a little later, because we're going to talk about the victories that the Knights had on the weekend. We're also going to set up Erie and Sarnia. But when you look at the way that it breaks down, the London Knights have 26 players on essentially active rosters, if you count Matthew Tkachuk and Corey Perry, who will be back. Jesse Nurmi and Oliver Bonk are still with their respective NHL teams. Both are injured. So you're at 26 without Bonk and Nurmi. And the average in the OHL is 9.3. So every team should have 9.3 former players in the NHL. The Knights have 26. So that number continues to keep them on their own island. So we'll break down some of that. We'll talk about Sam Dickinson making the Sharks. We'll talk about Easton Cowan, who, as we are recording this, has been recalled by the Toronto Maple Leafs. And there may be a little up and down on that. Brad Treleving, the general manager of the Maple Leafs, outlining he wants Easton Cowan to play wherever he is. If he's in the NHL, if he's in the American Hockey League with the Toronto Marlies, wants him playing games. You need development at the next level because you're taking that next step. Kyle, the Knights, though, they took a step. They got back to playing London Knights hockey, if we can call it that, capitalizing on their speed, setting up the cycle at times, possession of the puck in games against Flint and Guelph, and they pulled off two victories that have a lot of positives coming out of them. I mean, you look back to the 5-4 win over Flint. This is a game, Kyle, where the first period wasn't what the Knights wanted in any way. They come through 20 minutes, they're down 2-0.
Yeah, they were down early. Despite the fact that you mentioned it, there was a lot of controlled play. The Knights, the one thing that you're going to notice about this team all year, Mike, and I know you can attest to this too, this team is not going to be a team that doesn't work hard. They work incredibly hard. They skate fast. They were forechecking hard, a couple bounces and a couple odd man rushes, and just a couple costly mistakes end up in the back of their net. And all of a sudden, as you outlined, it's 2-0 going in. But it was something that didn't derail this team. It was something that they went into the locker room, they talked about. Maybe you could lean on maybe the veteran leadership stepping up a little bit, whether it's Sam O'Reilly, whether it's Jared Woolley, whether it's Henry Brustevich, knowing that, Alexei Medvedev was like, listen, I'm gonna settle down a little bit. We can get back into this thing. And they get back to playing the way that you're used to watching London Knights games. It was a little cleaner, it was a little crisper, but, getting pucks in at the point, cycling in on the forecheck, controlling the flow of the game, not playing to their opponent. And slowly you started watching the Knights chip away a little bit. Then they get a late lead and Flint comes back and ties it. Doesn't derail them. They win the faceoff early in overtime. And again, it's controlling the flow of play. And then the puck finds Sam O'Reilly in the slot, and that ridiculous release just under the blocker, just above the pad, sneaks through the net, and the Knights get their first win of the year.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about overtime and how 3-on-3 has evolved. And part of the evolution deals with the rule change that makes you change ends going into overtime. So we'll get to that in just a moment. But Kyle, you said it, getting those pucks in and then using the cycle game when it presents itself, or using your speed. And the Knights came out in that second period against Flint. If we're going to look at a pivotal period in a very, very young season, that's it. Period number 2 against the Flint Firebirds. They outshoot the Firebirds 20-10. And we asked Knights assistant coach Dylan Hunter, what was it? What changed things? And there was something. And here it is.
We're working on it all week. I know the guys, we had the leaders in the group, just telling them, remember practice, kind of put it to a game. So I think they did a good job of it, came out, kind of went back to the game plan, and they got confidence off it.
London Knights assistant coach Dylan Hunter. So talking about it, exactly what you had indicated, Kyle, talking about it during the week. Hey, if this happens, here's how we're going to be prepared for it. And it's that kind of coaching, that kind of veteran mentorship, all of that. And they were ready for it. And I also want to look at that line that played together on Friday night. And again, Dale Hunter has a number of combinations, usually early, especially if you've got players who haven't played together. And so he's going to be moving guys around, and we saw a lot of that. And ask any player on any championship team on the London Knights, they appreciate that. Landon Sim would outline this over and over again. The fact that when you play with everybody, you're going to have injuries in the playoffs. You're not going to play with the same people. You got to be ready to play with everybody. So those lessons have really started in earnest for the London Knights. But that line of Mike Zakharov and Max Crete and Brody Cook, if I have a favorite line from a period, it's that one. And you look at that first goal that they helped to create. So they're on the ice. They're technically the fourth line for the London Knights in that game. Let's just call it one of the bottom 2 lines in that game. On the board, it goes up as the fourth line, but they were getting quite a bit of ice time because you earn your ice time with Dale Hunter. And Mike Zakharov, his ability along the boards, Max Crete and his IQ, and they had held the puck in Flint's end for so long, and they had gone round and round with some cycle. They played along the boards. Flint was starting to be done, and they were exhausted. And then you get a quick change in where you've got Mike Zakharov who goes off, Sam O'Reilly comes on, Max Crete, I love watching Max Crete play. His IQ is so off the charts, and he's able to get the puck in behind the net and delay just long enough that O'Reilly's coming off the bench and crashing the net at the same time as Brody Cook. And he feathers a puck out there for one of them, and O'Reilly gets to it, and there was that first goal. And it just seemed that broke down this little wall, or that got them over whatever little hurdle there was. And from there, that offensive confidence only grew, and it continued to grow throughout the weekend. That goal, we got to remember that goal, Kyle. I know it was game 5 of the regular season. It was the first goal of a game. It wasn't a game-winning goal. But that right there, wearing down the defense, doing those things that have made so many Knights teams successful, and then putting the puck in the net because of it, that matters. That was great.
Boy, and it matters too, because those stretches, Mike, you see those go on for a month, a dozen games, however long it goes on for. So the fact that, that gets cut off at game number 5, the confidence builds in the room this early in the season, and then also results in back-to-back wins, both in overtime, and they're close games. So it's not like they're blowing them out and everything's going right for you. And then, you got to get back to the drawing board the next game. Both wins were incredibly hard earned. They're 2 games that, they're down, they come back, they take the lead, they give up the lead, and then they find a way to finish it. But it's the offense, it's the forwards, the ones that are doing it. And for a lot of the younger guys, for some of the players within that locker room, getting that opportunity with now so much created, with a lot of guys having graduated, moved on from last year's team, now they start to become, okay, I can do this at this level. I can create, I can go in and help my team offensively. I can create some cycle, some forecheck, and you're going to start to see that trickle down to the lineup. And you mentioned it when Landon Sim talked about the coaching staff and the players throughout the week, not just in between periods when it happens, but before the game even started, a week in advance, saying, hey, if we trail and it happens again, We got to remember to relax, stay calm, play our game. Don't panic. Don't start to do things that are out of the norm because that's when you fall behind. That's when you start playing catch up and their hockey. You keep to what your game plan is. You'll slowly start to see the effects of it. We got the full taste of that on Friday night.
Possession, cycle, and then using the speed. And a great example of that was Linus Funk's goal, which also came in the second period. And it was created because Evan Van Gorp uses that unbelievable speed that he has flying down left wing and then hooks off and finds Linus Funk, and Funk just buries a shot. And Funk was kind of laughing going into the game against Guelph, saying, his first goal was kind of lucky, he felt, in Erie because the puck was on its edge and he just made contact and it knuckled its way into the net. And this one was showing, hey, this is how this guy can put a puck on goal and put a puck into a net. But you got to be good to be lucky. And Linus Funk, certainly, when you look at him, you could make the argument best player on the ice on Friday night. He would certainly be in that conversation. But that possession, that speed, and that cycle game when you need it, those were keys for the London Knights. And then you get into overtime. And let's look back. The Knights had been in overtime 2 other times this year. And both of those games had something in common. Owen Sound and Erie won the opening faceoff. And while the Owen Sound game went on a little longer, Owen Sound kind of had that possession right away, and they were able to dictate things. In the Erie game, it was all about that because Erie was able to get a line change in. And Owen Sound even did it later in the overtime period, but they got a line change in. So you look at how 3-on-3 overtime has evolved. You had 5-on-5 for a while. Then they decided to go to 4-on-4, and everybody went, whoa, this is crazy. And then you go to 3-on-3. Wayne Gretzky loved it so much. He said, this is the greatest thing that's happened to hockey in a long time. But eventually coaches get involved, and coaches are very smart, and they will work out what works and what doesn't. And so the leagues make a little shift. Going into, what was it, last year, they decide, all right, start of overtime, you're going to change ends. So it means you've got a long change from the defensive zone. And maybe that will make it more difficult. We add in some more offense. And teams will use that now. If you can catch the other side being on the ice even right off the start of overtime or on a shift later where they haven't been able to change, you'll see a team bring the puck into center ice and make 2 changes. And then the player who's still with the puck usually gives it off to one of them, and 2 players are attacking fresh legs, lots of speed, and you can usually catch the other team. And that had happened to the London Knights. What happened this time around? That exact opposite thing, where Sam O'Reilly gets that first faceoff win, and the Knights didn't give up the puck until Henry Brustevich puts it onto O'Reilly's stick, and it's in the net.
Possession matters, and those faceoffs are so important. When you watch, in the NHL during those overtimes, and you watch a team win the faceoff, and they take their time slowly, they go into the zone. Nope, we don't like it. We're going to turn around. It's because possession is so important with that much space, with that skill level of player. And it's the same thing in the OHL. You want those veterans, you want those guys on that are so good in space that can create when you give them a little bit of room. When they find a little bit of room at 5-on-5, they can make a difference. So let alone when you get some space at 3-on-3, it matters that much more. So that first face-off off possession, if you can find a way to win that faceoff and create, it's why so many goaltenders, Mike, when they make a save, they try to play the puck to their team because it automatically gives you possession instead of taking a faceoff in your own end and risking that 50-50 shot that you don't come away with the puck.
That's it. And that's part of that strategy. You can't always make it work, but it matters. We had a chance to talk with Sam O'Reilly about the importance of that very thing.
I know it's big. Obviously, overtime, it's all about possession, and we got it early, and we made it work. And even if you're not getting the chance right away, you take it out and reattack. So that's what we did, and got lucky, and we scored.
Once you have it, is it almost a key to force them into a line change, or get a line change so you're forcing them to play without a line change?
Yeah, just try to have a lot of patience out there. Try not to rush it. It's all about possession, like I said, and we saw them changing there and caught them quickly, so it was good.
Talk to us a little bit about your latest NHL camp. You've now been to 2 different NHL camps.
Yeah.
Take us through what happened in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, it was great. Good experience. Got to meet a lot of new people, and got to put names to faces and got more comfortable as the time went on. But it was a good time and good learning experience, and it's a really good organization, and all the staff was really good to me and all the guys there. So it was a really good time, and I'm really excited to be there.
You get into a preseason game, you won face-offs, you end up scoring a goal, you play a ton of minutes. What do you remember from that?
Yeah, it was good. Just try to stick to my game and stick to why they got me there, and what they wanted to see. So just try to dig deep, and try to do all the little things right, and got a goal there, which was nice, and yeah, just a good time up there, and got lucky with the guys I was playing with, some veteran NHLers, so it was a good learning experience.
And when it comes to a goal like that, you know your skills at this level. What's it like to know that you can transfer a lot of what you do to that next level?
Yeah, it's good. Just trying to feel more comfortable. Obviously, playing exhibition games last year and then this year, it's with two different teams, it's a little different. But just try to stick to the system, and they wanted me to go to the net, and that's what I did. I got lucky with the tip.
And then last night, you wind up scoring a couple goals where going to the net in different ways pans out too.
Yeah, exactly. Just trying to switch it up. Obviously, we weren't scoring a lot, so I'm going to get those two, and hopefully they keep coming.
London Knights forward Sam O'Reilly on basically getting that possession, winning that faceoff, and he is so good in the faceoff circle. Then we go to the next day in Guelph as the London Knights go on the road, taking on a Storm team that had been kind of win some, lose some. They'd won a couple in a row coming into this game, and they always get great support in their building. They've got a lot of good young players. Jaco Wysick is a pleasure to watch. He is the second overall pick from the 2025 OHL priority selection, and his lateral movement, you either have that or you don't, and he has it. And his quickness, his release, he's 16 years old. He scored one of the Guelph goals in the game. But again, it got back to speed and possession. The Knights got the first goal in the game. How did they get it? Rene Van Bommel using his speed, going around a defender. And then that little patented, now I think we can patent this, little Rene Van Bommel chip shot. He doesn't go in and deke. He does this little chip right over the goalie, and over it went, and the Knights had themselves a lead, which has been something that they have battled to get, that first goal, that early goal.
It's nice to have that. It changes, your comfortability, the way you play, knowing that, you've executed your game plan first, and that all of a sudden you're playing with a little bit more charge in front of you. But it's just, for the Knights, like you said, it's been hard to come by getting that first goal and not always having to chase the game. And it's a nice experience knowing that when you get that lead, it's okay, this is what we're doing is working. It gives the guys on the bench a boost. You're able to kind of build momentum off of that. So it was nice. But that goal, Mike, that Rene Van Bommel scored, where you're cutting a cross body and you go chip short side back over the glove. As a goalie, it's so hard because you mentioned the speed when he's coming around. He blows by the defender. He cuts in. When you're cutting in from right to left as a forward, as a goaltender, you have to be ready for him to cut all the way across and go far side. As you're moving your momentum one way, that chip shot then allows you to take some of that short side and put it back over that way. It's so difficult for a goaltender to stop. And because he's so confident in that move, he sells like he's cutting across. And as he does, that chip coming up across, it's so difficult for a goaltender to be able to make that save.
Yeah, great first goal. And then it did go back and forth a little bit, and the Knights eventually would go ahead very late on a goal by Evan Van Gorp. And this was about turning a puck over, and it was Van Bommel. And also on the ice for the London Knights on that was Cohen Bidgood. And so he helps to turn it over and then knocks it in front, and Evan Van Gorp winds up putting the puck in the net. And then what happens? Guelph comes right down and ties it, and back you go to overtime. And again, it comes down to possession. The Knights had it, and Jared Woolley, with his offensive prowess, this is a guy who at the NHL level is going to probably play a rather large shutdown role. But when your shutdown guy can score the number of goals that Jared Woolley has scored, he had 4 goals in 3 games going into the Saturday game against Guelph, and then he brings the puck in across the blue line again, catching the Storm a little bit fatigued, and he just saucers this pass in front, and Ben Wilmot gets his first OHL goal in overtime as an OT winner. He was somebody who'd taken a puck up in the face in practice, and he was wearing the full face shield, but he made no mistake, puts it in, and the Knights get their second back-to-back winner. Ben Wilmot with the finish, and he'll do that. And he's a guy that you love watching just for his effort level. But Ben, after the game, pretty happy. Let's just say that.
There are nice ways to score first OHL goals. How nice is it to get an overtime winner?
It was an amazing feeling. This was a big game for the boys to put us back to 500. It's just a great feeling to do it with the fellas. Great pass by Wolf. Yeah, the boys are super pumped, and I wouldn't want to do it with any other group of guys. Like, it was amazing.
London Knights forward Ben Wilmot and Jared Woolley with the pass. I mean, he can shoot, he can pass. I mean, if the Knights run into a rash of injuries at forward, number one left winger? Can we do that? Number one right winger?
Well, what is it, Mike? In football, guys, some players play both ways. They play offense and defense. Travis Hunter on Jacksonville is a receiver and a cornerback. Maybe Jared Woolley at times plays defense. Maybe he's left wing or center. I don't know. Listen, I remember going back a couple of years ago to when he scored the teddy bear toss goal for the first game for the Knights a few years back, and just was so nonchalant during the interview afterwards. Like, yeah, got the puck, was able to put it in, and he's so low key about it all. But the talent is really there, and the fact that he's stepping up and doing so many different things for this Knights team is going to be huge for them down the stretch this year, because having a player of that ability to be able to contribute on multiple ends for this team is. You can't get enough of those guys on your roster. So to have one, you cling on to that, and I feel like you ride it as long as you can.
Big moment guy. And you always need players who can step up in big moments, or at least pass that baton to here's what it's like, and here's how to get things done in those big moments. Let's look at the National Hockey League. Kyle, one of the big questions coming into this year was, would Sam Dickinson make the San Jose Sharks opening roster, 23-man roster? We finally have an answer, and the answer is yes. Yes, he will.
Did. And, Mike, we're going to find out real quick, how he's utilized within the roster, because, as we're recording as of Wednesday, October the 8th, the Sharks play October the 9th. So that'll be a Thursday night game. He's in the lineup against it. We'll see how he's used. It's at home. It's versus the Vegas Golden Knights. Because he could be a guy, Mike, that just hits the ground running. He did it in London. It wouldn't shock me if he does it in San Jose.
Yeah, I don't think that should be a surprise to anybody whatsoever. And the Sharks did something interesting with him in training camp. They played him a ton in the preseason. And one of the quotes from one of their coaches was, we put him through the ringer. And you talk about playing against Vegas. He played a game against Vegas in which he played 23 minutes, and this was not his first game of the week. I think it was his third game in 4 days or third game in 5 days, and he played in that game, played 23 minutes. Jack Eichel and Mitch Marner both played in that game. Now, maybe they didn't have the 100% Jets on their skates, but they were still in that game, and the Sharks won that game. And they didn't surrender a goal in that game. And Sam Dickinson was +1 in that game. And so his ability to go out and, as he says, impact winning hockey. That's all he tries to do. But in doing that, and this is such a great lesson, and one day if Sam Dickinson has a book written about him, I really hope that that's the title. I just want to impact winning hockey, because it's so good for players to hear that, where he can score. He's got a heck of a shot. He can defend. He's amazing at it. But he looks to do the little things. All right, what am I being called upon to do in this situation? We're up by 1, 5 minutes left. I got to go out and make sure that I do nothing wrong. I'm not going to try and push offense. I just want to make sure they don't get any chances on our net. And he just does that instinctively. Or, hey, it's tied or we're down and there's 7 minutes left. Here I go over the boards. I'm maybe going to take a chance here if I see it. And then he's got that IQ to recognize when to go. And it's just one of those things that, just like we talked Jaakko Weisek, who's beginning his OHL career, you either have it or you don't. And he has it, and that'll be a big boon for the San Jose Sharks. It is tough, though. I mean, Sam is 6'3", 205, so he's got good size, but you're dealing with men and strong men night after night after night. Is that something that the Sharks are still looking at? I don't think they're going to be too worried about the mental side of it because, Sam just takes what's coming. He's been 35 years old since he was 15. So that's not a concern for him either. So I really think this gives him a shot, depending on how his first few games go, to stick with the Sharks because you said it, Kyle. You look down the roster, who is better than this guy outside of the 6 or 7D that they have with the team right now? And it'll be hard to find somebody who you can say, yeah, no, this player is much better.
Well,
So,
it's not a knock on their roster either. It's just
not at all.
We've come to know Sam Dickinson and what his ability is to do, and we just look at him and go, yeah, we genuinely think he's that good of a player where he matches up and fits right into that NHL role.
And the other guy to look at is Easton Cowan from last year's team. And I got to admit, Kyle, we were in Rimouski, Quebec, and I did a few interviews with some Toronto media members, and one of them actually came out and said it, but there was just this underlying theme that, hey, if Mitch Marner leaves, no problem. Easton Cowan's coming. And that was a thing that I was really hoping wouldn't develop as a narrative. And maybe the Blue Jays have helped this a little bit, but I was really hoping it wouldn't develop as a narrative because that's not fair to somebody. First of all, they aren't the exact same player. And number two, to be able to look and say, oh, don't worry, there's another guy who went through the London Knights system and was coached by Dale Hunter and Dylan Hunter and Rick Steadman, and he'll just step into Mitch Marner's skates. And I love what Brad Treliving of the Toronto Maple Leafs, their general manager, has pointed out. And I think this kind of said it. And Craig Berube has been very good throughout training camp in just saying, hey, Easton's just doing what we're doing. But it was never, okay, he's going to be here or we need him to do this. Or there was never any of that. And that is so healthy. And then Brad Treliving coming out and saying, we just need him playing. Wherever he is, NHL, American Hockey League, we just need him playing. And that sends a message to fans of the Maple Leafs or watchers of the Maple Leafs. It just sends a message that we're developing this guy and we're going to put him into positions to succeed, whether that's at the NHL level right now, whether it's at the American Hockey League level right now. He just needs to be playing hockey. And I thought that is so good. The number of young players who have been brought up too early and wind up sitting in the press box as a healthy scratch and wind up maybe losing their confidence a little bit. There's a long list. And the way that the Leafs are handling this particular situation, I think is so healthy. And I'm so happy because you get worried when guys make that jump. You don't want them to be the shiny new toy when they're too young, and you don't want them to be put into situations where their confidence is hurt. And I think the Leafs are doing a great job. And here's hoping it turns Easton Cowan into a superstar in the National Hockey League one day.
Yeah, and there's so many differences between Marner and Cowan. Mitch was a 4th overall selection. Easton was the late first round pick, 28th. And not that draft pedigree matters to a certain extent, but you do look at it in that extent where you're selecting someone in the top 3, 5, whatever, the expectations are a little higher. And, Easton later on in the first was a lot of time to go back to London and take a couple of years. And we got to remember he's 20 years old. He is still so young and there's so much to learn and every player is different. Some guys can just come in and be that player in a meet. We just talked about Sam Dickinson. He profiles a little different from Easton, but Sam Dickinson was the 11th overall pick just a year ago. So you just have to give them the opportunity to see where they're comfortable at. And I think as time goes on, Easton's going to get more comfortable. The team feels like they're very tight. He's already, stayed with John Tavares, who former captain of the team, can give him a couple pieces of advice. He still talks to Mitch every day too. So I just think you nailed it, Mike. I think the Leafs are doing the right thing by him. I think just getting him into the lineup and having a feel for what the NHL and pro hockey is like is a massive benefit.
If we look, the Knights have 26 ex-players in the National Hockey League, and Cowan can become 27 now. So he is on that list after being recalled by the Maple Leafs. And as we record this, we're before the Leafs' first game. So we'll see whether or not he winds up in that game. And then, we'll follow throughout as to where these guys go. But it's hard to watch an NHL game without a former Knight in it. And that always makes it a little fun, too. Let's take a look at the weekend to come for the London Knights. They will take on 2 teams on home ice. The Erie Otters on Friday night, October the 10th, and the Sarnia Sting on Saturday, October the 11th. Don't forget, Saturday is replica banner night. So the
Yes.
first 1,000 fans are going to receive a commemorative replica 2025 Memorial Cup Championship banner. It'll look just like the one that hangs in the rafters, but it won't be as big because then you don't have anywhere to put it in your house. I don't know if you've seen how big those are. You could hang that from your
They're big.
ceiling and it would be curling at the bottom on the floor. So that is available to the first 1,000 fans. And thanks to you listening to this podcast, I can tell you, we had Alex Brown on the afternoon talk show I do, London Live, and he said gate 1 and gate 5. That's where the banners are going to be. So if you're looking to
Okay.
go into a gate and you want a banner, first you have to be one of the first 1,000 fans. I hope someone pitches a tent 2 days before the game because we miss that in life. We used to have this with concert tickets and CDs. If there was a concert that you wanted tickets to, bring a tent. That's how you were going to guarantee. And then even CDs, record stores would say, hey, we're allowed to sell this on this day, so we're opening at midnight. And you would wait around till midnight. It would be a school night, whatever. You got to be there. You got to get that CD. And then you stayed up till 2 a.m. listening to the CD and you're worried about sleeping later. We don't have enough of that in our world anymore. So now you get a chance to bring a tent because you got to be the first 1,000 in order to get one of these. But gate 1 and gate 5. So that is the Saturday game against Sarnia. And also bring along hats and mitts. Rogers has a promotion where they're collecting hats and mitts. So bring those along because the cold weather is starting to come. It is hockey season after all. When we look at the Friday game, the Knights will take on the Erie Otters. And Kyle, the Knights lost to Erie in Erie 2 weeks ago, 2 Saturdays ago. But if you look at what happened in that game, there were those little mistakes that the Knights really cut down on in their games against Flint and Guelph. And you can go back to 2 goals that were scored off either mistakes or bad breaks. And one was a bobbled puck inside the blue line on a pass back to a defenseman. Another was a defenseman carrying the puck too far into the zone. Stick breaks, bad break. And next thing you know, both pucks are in the net. So Erie's coming off a difficult road trip. They went east. They beat Peterborough in a shootout, but then lost to Ottawa and Kingston. And goal scoring has been difficult for the Erie Otters. That was one of the storylines going into the London Erie game. Goal scoring had been difficult on both sides. So it's been difficult for them. Their power play sits at 10.5%. That's tied with Brampton for last in the OHL right now. And they're going to have to find some of those go-to guys who can score because Malcolm Spence is putting up points for Michigan now because he's playing in the NCAA. And they saw the graduation of Panofemus and Sam Alfano. And they saw the graduation of Martin Mishiak. His brother Alex is on the team, but he's still finding his way in the OHL. So Erie is a team that you want to make sure you're not giving them those easy opportunities because they can take advantage of them. Gabe Frasca was a guy who took advantage of some opportunities that just came to him. Cut down on those, you give yourself a good chance. And then against Sarnia, Sarnia has won 3 of their last 4, and they're a team that can score. They're a team that has scored 20 goals, Kyle, in their past 4 games. And getting Jack Van Volsen has been a big pickup. This happened in the summertime, and you looked and you went, yeah, he's a guy that was once a first-round pick. And, yeah, he'd probably be able to get some things done. His offense has never been what it is so far in the league, where he's got 5 goals in 6 games. And then Beckham Edwards, who's from Kamoka, has picked up right where he left off last year for Sarnia. So the offense is certainly there, and they've got a young team. We talked about them coming in, that if things fall the right way, they're going to be a really dangerous team. So London versus Erie, London versus Sarnia, rounding out the weekend.
Yeah, it's funny. It's kind of a battle of 2 different tapes. You got a team in Erie who's been having trouble scoring of late, and then you got a team in Sarnia who, goals are plentiful for a couple of guys up front. So different game plans. I like the fact, Mike, that London has already seen Erie. They know the things that they did wrong in that game that eventually led to a loss. And I like the fact that they get them just a few weeks later after they've started to play a little bit better hockey and they've gotten their first 2 wins under their belt. So it's a nice little mini revenge game to be able to have them come back to London, gives them a chance to maybe rewrite that loss early in the season, go over 500, and then gear up for a matchup against Sarnia.
Last thing on the pod, one of the most interesting men in the Ontario Hockey League, Julian Brown. So we talked with Julian, who talked about lacrosse and meeting Tony Ostranges and just hanging out on a couple of floaties in a lake after a skate, becoming good buddies. Tonio was there when Julian Brown signed his OHL academic and development agreement. And now we have to go back because Julian told us at that time that he spoke 3 languages, and we didn't really seize on that to find out what they were. Well, we did this past week. Here is Julian Brown on speaking 3 languages and what those are.
So my brother was accepted into a French immersion school, and they kind of have like a grandfathered in kind of system. And since he got accepted, I kind of got accepted right after him. And since kindergarten, from kindergarten to about, I think it was 10th grade, I was in French school.
So bilingual, well, eventually trilingual, but fluent in French.
Yeah, fluent in French. It's like AP French. Oh yeah. So it was like from kindergarten to I guess it was 5th grade. It was French immersion, so like no English at all. I think at one point my French might have been better than English. Once I got to middle school, and I had, like in English class, there's technicalities, grammar and structure, and I didn't really learn any of that, so I was a little behind. But
well, talking about grammar and structure, the third one is German. I mean, if you don't know what you're going to say in German before you say it, you're going to run into all kinds of trouble trying to get a sentence out. So where does German come from?
It comes from my family. My grandmother, my paternal grandmother is German. And so she spoke German, taught it to my dad. My dad taught it to us. We actually went to Saturday school. It was tough. Every Saturday from like 9 to 1. My brother and I were in Saturday school.
All in German?
All in German.
While you're still learning French and dealing with English?
Yep.
But right now, I mean, when we hear people speak a lot of languages, they'll say a lot of other things come easier. Mm-hmm. Would you find that? Does your brain just fire maybe better than the rest of ours?
Maybe when it comes to like learning new words, just because there's similarities between all those languages. They all stem from Latin, and there's similarities in a lot of the words. But other than that, I mean, maybe with songs, I could listen to a French song and understand it. Travel the world and understand different languages. We go to France and Germany a lot, just visiting family and vacations. And, obviously that helps knowing the language where I can navigate and I can go out on my own and not have to rely on a translator or something like that.
You can be the translator.
Yeah.
Incredible. All right. Thanks for this.
Yeah, of course.
London Knights defenseman Julian Brown. That brings us to the end of the podcast. Kyle, we'll look forward to the weekend, 2 home games, replica Memorial Cup banner night. Find the show in its audio form wherever you get your shows, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and you can certainly find things on the London Knights YouTube channel throughout this year as we talk London Knights.
Yep, all exciting stuff, Mike, and should be fun. A couple back-to-back games at home at Canada Life Place. If you don't have your tickets yet, go to LondonKnights.com for more.